The elevators are dead. You live on the 20th floor. Your apartment is getting hotter by the hour, your phone is down to 18%, and the water you have upstairs is all the water you're guaranteed to have. Outside, the city is trapped in a brutal heat wave. Inside, your apartment is becoming a heat box. And here's the problem most upper-floor residents never plan for. By the time you realize your apartment is no longer safe, getting out may already be difficult. So in this video, I'm going to show you how to slow the heat before it takes over your apartment, how to create one survivable cooling zone without air conditioning, and most importantly, the warning signs that tell you it's time to stop waiting and get out. Because during a serious heat wave, the top floor can go from having the best view in the building to being one of the worst places to be. Let's start with a mistake that happens before the apartment even feels dangerously hot. Most people wait until they're uncomfortable before reacting. That's already late. During the afternoon, sunlight pours through your windows and heats your floors, furniture, walls, counters, and everything else inside the room. Those surfaces store that heat and slowly release it back into your apartment. So your first job isn't cooling the apartment. It's preventing as much heat as possible from getting inside. If one side of your apartment gets hammered by afternoon sunlight, treat those windows like openings in your defenses. Close the blinds before direct sunlight reaches them. Use blackout curtains if you have them. If you have safe reflective coverings suitable for your windows in lease situation, use them on the windows receiving the strongest sun. Do this in the morning, not after the apartment already feels like an oven. Every hour of sunlight you block is heat you don't have to fight later. And if you live directly below the roof, this becomes even more important. The roof itself can absorb intense solar heat for hours and continue radiating that energy downward even after the sun begins to disappear. That's why a top-floor apartment can remain miserable long after the sidewalk outside starts cooling. Now here's the second rule. Stop trying to save the entire apartment. In a small apartment, that may sound strange, but even a small apartment contains spaces you don't need to occupy during an emergency. Choose one room. Look for the room that receives the least direct sunlight and is separated as much as possible from the hottest exterior walls. Move your essentials there. Drinking water, medications, phone chargers, power banks, battery-powered fan, flashlights, pets, anything you expect to need during the hottest hours. Then close the doors to the areas you're not using. You're creating a heat refuge inside your own apartment. You don't need your kitchen, bedroom, hallway, and living room to all feel comfortable. You need one place where the people in your home can reduce heat exposure and conserve energy. That single decision also makes your fan, backup power, water, and other supplies more useful because you're concentrating them around the place you're actually occupying. The third rule is where many people accidentally make their apartment hotter. Don't assume that opening every window is always the answer. Imagine it's 3:30 in the afternoon. The temperature inside is extremely uncomfortable, so you open every window hoping for relief. But the air outside is even hotter. Now you're replacing relatively cooler indoor air with hotter outdoor air, while the sun continues heating the building. Instead, think of ventilation as a timing problem. During the hottest part of the day, reduce solar heating and limit unnecessary hot air entering the apartment. Then watch what happens outside. When evening arrives and the outdoor temperature drops below the indoor temperature, change your strategy. Open windows. If your apartment has openings on opposite sides, create cross-ventilation. Use your fan to move cooler air through the apartment and help push accumulated heat out. If you only have windows on one side, experiment with fan placement. Sometimes using a fan to exhaust hot indoor air through a window can be more useful than simply pointing it directly at your body. The important principle is simple. Don't blindly bring outdoor air inside. Use the cooler hours to flush out the heat you trapped during the day. At this point, you've already done 3 things that can dramatically improve your situation. blocked incoming heat, created a smaller cooling zone, and controlled when hot air enters your apartment. If you live in an apartment or high-rise, tell me your floor in the comments. I'm curious how many people watching this are dealing with the upper floor problem right now. And if you want more preparedness strategies designed specifically for renters and apartment dwellers, subscribe. That's exactly what this channel's built around. Now we need to talk about the resource that can turn from ordinary to critical very quickly. Water. When people hear emergency water storage, they usually picture hurricanes, earthquakes, or contaminated water systems. But heat changes the equation. Your body relies heavily on sweating to regulate temperature. In a hot apartment, you can lose fluid even while sitting still. And this creates a unique problem for high-rise residents. If your water isn't already upstairs, you may have to bring it upstairs. Imagine carrying multiple gallons of water up 12, 15, or 20 flights of stairs during a heat wave because the elevator stopped working. That's not preparation. That's a physical emergency layered on top of another emergency. Store drinking water inside your apartment before the heat wave arrives. You don't need enormous containers that dominate your limited storage space. For many renters, several smaller containers are easier to store, rotate, move, and carry than one massive container. Use the space you have, under furniture, inside a closet, along a low shelf. The goal isn't to build a bunker, it's to make sure one failed elevator doesn't separate you from the water you need. Your food strategy should follow the same logic. If the power goes out, your refrigerator and freezer become temporary insulated boxes. Stop opening them every 15 minutes. Decide what you need before opening the door. Take it out and close the door quickly. And during extreme heat, prioritize foods that require little or no cooking. Running an oven or creating unnecessary indoor heat is exactly what you don't want in an already overheated apartment. But here's where the situation becomes more realistic. Imagine this is no longer hour 3, it's day 2. You slept badly because the apartment never really cooled overnight. The elevator's still down. Your phone is at 12%. Your power bank is halfway depleted. The refrigerated food you were protecting yesterday is becoming questionable. You hear people in the hallway discussing where they can buy ice. Someone downstairs says the nearest store is sold out of water. And now the weather alert says the hottest part of the heat wave hasn't even arrived yet. This is the moment when preparedness stops being about comfort. It's about buying yourself options. Your batteries matter because your phone isn't just entertainment anymore. It's your weather alert system, your communication with family, your connection to building management, and possibly your source of evacuation information. Keep phones charged before the hottest hours whenever power is available. Keep power banks topped off. Don't burn through your emergency battery watching videos when the grid is unstable. And keep at least one independent light source ready. That sounds unrelated to heat until the power fails after sunset and you're standing in a dark stairwell 17 floors above the street. A flashlight or headlamp doesn't cool your apartment, but it may be what allows you to leave it safely. Now let's talk about your body. One of the worst things you can do during extreme heat is turn the emergency into a workout. People start pacing. They reorganize supplies. They walk downstairs to see what's happening. Then they walk back up. They go outside looking for ice. They move furniture around trying to find a cooler spot. Every unnecessary movement creates more body heat and increases your need for water. Do important physical tasks during the cooler parts of the day, whenever possible. During peak heat, reduce exertion. Wear lightweight clothing. Stay in your shaded zone. Use cool water on the skin when appropriate. And if you have a battery-powered fan, don't run it thoughtlessly from morning until night if your backup power is limited. You are managing resources now. Which brings us to the decision I promised at the beginning. When should you stop sheltering inside the apartment and leave? This is where a lot of otherwise prepared people make a dangerous mistake. They assume that because they prepared to shelter in place, Sheltering in place must remain the best option. It doesn't. Your apartment can become the emergency. If the temperature keeps climbing, you have no meaningful way to cool the space. Vulnerable people in the home are struggling, or official authorities are directing residents toward cooling locations. Your plan needs to change. You should already know where you could go before this decision becomes urgent. A relative's home, a friend's house, a designated cooling center, another location with reliable air conditioning and backup power. And don't only ask, "Where can I go?" Ask, "Can I physically get there if the elevator's dead?" 20 flights of stairs feels very different when the building is cool and the lights are working. Now imagine doing it in extreme heat while carrying water, a backpack, a child, or trying to control a frightened dog. This is why your evacuation bag should be light. Take what solves immediate problems: essential medication, identification, keys, phone, charging cable, power bank, flashlight, water, a small amount of food, basic first aid supplies, and whatever is absolutely necessary for your children or pets. Don't build a 50-pound wilderness backpack for an urban heat evacuation. Your objective is mobility. And this is also where having a few apartment-specific emergency items already selected can save you from making desperate buying decisions during the crisis. I've linked the compact gear I consider most useful for this kind of situation in the description and pinned comment, including options for water, backup power, emergency lighting, and core apartment supplies. You don't need everything. Start with the weakness in your apartment that would become a problem first. Now there's one final danger we need to talk about, and it's more important than any piece of gear. Don't judge the seriousness of the situation only by how uncomfortable you feel. Extreme heat can build gradually. That's what makes it deceptive. At first you're annoyed, then you're exhausted. You haven't slept well. You're sweating constantly. You're making slower decisions. And because the apartment didn't become dangerously hot all at once, your brain keeps telling you that you've already tolerated it this long. So maybe you can tolerate another hour. That's exactly why you need objective information. Monitor official heat warnings. If possible, keep a simple indoor thermometer in the apartment so you're not guessing about conditions. Pay close attention to older adults, children, pets, and anyone who may be especially vulnerable to heat. And if someone becomes confused, collapses, becomes seriously weak, or shows signs of a medical emergency, stop treating the situation like a preparedness exercise. Get emergency medical help. The most important heatwave decision may be the one you make before you feel desperate. That's the real lesson for upper floor apartment residents. Block heat before it enters. Create one manageable cooling zone. Ventilate when the outside air actually becomes cooler. Keep water upstairs before you need it. Protect your battery power. Reduce physical exertion. Prepare a lightweight evacuation bag. And know where you're going if staying inside stops being safe. Because living high above the street changes the math. You may not control the power grid. You don't control the elevator. You don't control the building's water pumps, ventilation system, roof temperature, or emergency response. But you do control what is already inside your apartment when those systems fail. You control whether your water is upstairs or at the store, whether your power bank is charged or empty, whether your flashlight is ready or buried in a drawer, whether you have a cooling strategy, and whether you already know what would make you leave. If you're building your apartment emergency kit, I've pinned the specific categories I'd prioritize first. A compact water solution, backup power, emergency lighting, and the basic supplies that don't consume half your closet. Check those links in the pinned comment and description and start with the one vulnerability your apartment has today. Because during a normal summer afternoon, living 20 floors above the street may just mean a better view. But when the power disappears, the elevator stops, the building keeps absorbing heat, and thousands of people suddenly need the same water, batteries, and cooling supplies at the same time, your options start disappearing. Preparation isn't what you buy after that happens. It's what you already had before the temperature started climbing.